All it takes is a quick online search to see how many groups are using polls to track the presidential race. But it's getting harder and more expensive to produce those results. Sylvia Hall reports on the business of polling.
While the candidates crisscross the country trying to get your vote, pollsters are hitting the phone lines looking for your opinion on the race. Groups like Gallup, Pew Research, and Rasmussen are in high gear this year, checking the pulse of the nation as November approaches.
The business has grown tremendously. If you look at the time when Lou Harris was polling for the candidate John Kennedy, there were only a few pollsters in the field. Today we have more than a dozen pollsters releasing results on a fairly regular basis, and so we're inundated with poll findings.
But the polling business is changing. Right now, about a third of U.S. households only have cell phones and not landlines. And when a pollster calls a cell phone, they say only about 10% of people actually answer all the questions.
More people are reluctant to talk on their cell phones. We offer people incentives because we're calling them on their cell phone. It's just much more difficult to do. I think we estimate that the average cost of interview is 50% higher in a cell phone versus landline.
Andrew Kohut headed Gallup back in the 80s and now leads the Pew Research Center. He says political polling is just a small part of what these organizations do and has never brought in much revenue. But it's big business for the firms who poll for political campaigns. So far this year, presidential candidates have spent more than $12.5 million on polls, surveys, and research. And back in 2008, after all was said and done, candidates spent more than $43 million on polling.
It really is a pretty small number of firms that do 90% of the work.
Pete Brodnitz is with the firm heading up polling for President Obama. He says the business is getting creative to handle the changes in technology. That includes cutting costs by using automated phone calls for simple polls, using the internet instead of focus groups to test ad campaigns, and sharing polling data among groups supporting the same candidate.
They're doing things like forming organizations that can sell data to other groups. So instead of people commissioning their own polls, which might have been more common in the past, increasingly there are cases where the outside groups will pool together and then they'll share data.
While campaign research is up and running now, experts say polling will kick into high gear after Labor Day as the presidential election gets closer. Sylvia Hall, NPR, Washington.